You are tuned into Her Royal Opinion on CJSW 90.9 FM, broadcasting out of Calgary and getting straight to the tunes. Today we'll have an interview with Lynn Fraser, talking a little bit about the mind, and we'll also play those beats you know you love. Now, pleased to welcome into the studio Lynn Fraser, who is here in town working, doing a workshop, also previously had lived here. She does the work in healing of the mind, taking the time to look at past traumas and the unsettlement that it causes in both our physical body, our mental body, the nervous system, everything around, so that we can really land in a place of peace and connectedness with our surroundings. And really, the practices she provides are simple, poignant, assisted with guided options from the online realm. And Lynn, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. I would like to start things off if you could offer just a couple minutes, just a little grounding exercise for our listeners out there. If you are driving a car, don't close your eyes. All right. But even if you're at your desk, you're listening to this later while you're laying in bed, this is just a couple moments here to ground down and land. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. This is an exercise on relaxing your forehead and worrying. A lot of time people have a lot of intrusive thoughts, compulsive thoughts, and this is a way to calm that down. So bring your attention in. Notice the softness of your forehead and your eyebrows. And of course, oftentimes when we first tune in, there's not a lot of softness there. We have our eyebrows kind of furrowed, or we have tension through that part of the face. So as you bring your attention in, see if you can allow that to soften. You could bring your eyebrows up and then let them relax down. You might notice the flow of air in your nostrils as well, your eyes. And then keep your focus mostly now on the forehead, on the muscles. Allow them to soften. The eyebrows, let them relax. And as you're doing that, bring to mind something that you worry about. Most of us don't have to reach too far into the background to find that. And notice how that comes up. It might be images or words. And as you're thinking about that and looking at those images or hearing those words, allow yourself to really focus in on softening through the forehead and the eyebrows. Allow your breath to be relaxed. Focusing most of your attention on your forehead, let those muscles soften, let your eyebrows relax. And see if you can keep that worry going as well, even as you're softening your eyebrows and softening your forehead. And then open your eyes.
There we go. I got a little softness there. Lovely. I do like your cadence. You do have a nice cadence to your voice. So, Lynn, now that I've stopped getting through people traveling in the snow, all that good stuff, your journey with the idea of using meditation and these practices for healing, it came from personal experience, yes?
Yes.
So, what was, can you just give us a little introduction of what led you and kind of began your journey into self-healing in this way?
Well, I started meditating in 93, and I had been working at AIDS Calgary for 7 years, which was a very intense environment. Mm-hmm. And someone suggested I learn how to meditate, and I just loved it. I started working with the breath. And then I'd been meditating already for 13 years, was very serious about it, was teaching meditation. And I was riding my bike to work one day along by the drop-in center along the Bow River, and I was assaulted physically by somebody and knocked off my bike, went down the river path, and ended up with PTSD from that. And I had a pretty well-trained mind by then, and was shocked at the result of the intrusive thinking and the catastrophic thinking and just how it took over my system. So then I had the opportunity to use the skills that I had to heal And over the next several months, I did a lot of yoga practices, a lot of shavasana healing practices.
Yeah.
I had to testify in court. They caught the man and I testified in court. That was a whole other thing for the nervous system.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I came to a place of healing. And then 5 years ago, I discovered developmental trauma through Dr. Gabor Mate, a physician in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I started to realize the impact that my teen years had on my mental health, on my nervous system. And then I started to really go in and deeply heal a lot of that trauma and realize that trauma is stored in the body. And even though yoga had been really helpful and meditation and breathing had really helped, that took me to a whole new level. Most people reach a tipping point where they realize that they don't have to be scared and avoid the energy in their body. Mm-hmm. But until they do, we tend to run away from it.
Absolutely. Avoid to the death, and it shows up in how we consume, how Absolutely. We interact, our relationships, our communication, all of it. Like, and as I say that, I'm thinking about like 5 or 6 habits I have that I'm like, I know I'm running away from my feelings.
Yeah.
And you use the word trauma, and you speak to, a significant assault and childhood. But I think sometimes you need to bring it down that trauma and how it stores in the body. And you might have had a loving family, but it doesn't mean that there isn't things that took place in your life in those younger years that didn't create trauma. Like it isn't a fault on your upraising or even a slander of that upraising, to acknowledge that there was something there that you in your young years, I in my young years, just didn't cope with appropriately, and potentially those around us weren't aware of what it was doing to us, or didn't know how to deal with it on their own right.
This is pretty new knowledge.
Yes.
The one thing they did in the 90s, the Center for Disease Control in the U.S., did a study called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and they discovered that it has a huge impact on our adult lives, and that neglect, just not being seen or not feeling like you're valued and seen in the family, and that's emotional, not just food and clothes. I didn't have any that kind of abuse in my childhood, but I was really emotionally neglected and not seen, and that sets up this drive for connection, because human beings need to be connected in order to be safe and in order to survive.
Right.
And that's what sets up that drive for connection.
Yeah, and listeners to the show on a regular basis, you'll hear me say things like, you are worthy and deserving of love, regardless of anything else. And that comes, when I say those things in an absolute genuine manner, it is because I truly believe that most of us somewhere deep down actually don't think that. If we go and we go core, and you keep paring down why we do things that we do, so it comes back to this sense of worthiness and love. And so your book, you have a book out, you're teaching a workshop this weekend, you're in town. You have, it's like a plan, like it looked very bite-sized, like you take little small ways of getting at the unrest. Maybe it's, not sleeping, that furrowed brow that we just did in our grounding exercise, that you go through your entire day with like these wrinkled brows, and not wrinkles like, oh, you're gorgeous and you're wise and you're aging, but the wrinkles like, ow, if you let that go, you're getting headaches because you're squeezing it so hard type of thing. Yeah. These are small practices.
Yes.
So how would you, to somebody intimidating, they're like, oh, I can see some of this. How do you, what would you suggest in terms of introduction? How would get the confidence to look at a book like this, to think about doing these practices? What would you say to them if you were looking at them in the face?
Well, one thing, just to refer back to the core deficiency stories, in the Living Inquiries, which is the method that I primarily use along with meditation, the mechanism of that is that we don't feel safe if we're not in control. And as children, if we're not getting what we need, we turn it back against ourselves. So it's a really well understood mechanism. So it's not something I'm doing wrong that I developed this feeling of being unworthy. It's how the mechanism works. Okay. So our survival system, our primitive brain is set up for that. Yeah. So what we need to do then is convince ourselves through direct experience that we're safe and that it's okay to be in our bodies. And to use the breath breath is a really good way in. Sometimes with people with a lot of trauma, that's too scary, and then we need to work in other ways. But for most people, working with the breath is a good step in. And one really simple tool people can use if they're stressed about something is to exhale 6 seconds. That stimulates the polyvagal system and our relaxation response. So you can do it by talking in longer sentences. You could do it by counting yourself to 6. You could do it by singing or chanting.
That is an entry level. Very easy.
Yeah.
Breath is one of your most direct ways of bringing it all back. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's one. And that kind of covers from that statement, an introduction. First thing, never done this before.
Right.
What can, that exhale of 6 breaths. Really great. We could talk, but we're going to jump into a track here as I keep an eye on the clock. Oh, I rhymed. Look at that. And we will come back and talk to Lynn a little bit longer and get you listeners who you might be interested, curious, all of the ways to connect with her because she is well out there in the world. This is a short little snippet of a song, Bonfire from Brecky. All right. So Lynn, you're here. Where is your workshop going on this weekend?
It's at the yoga studio in Crowchild. So it's on Crowchild Trail North.
Yeah.
And it's Friday evening and then Saturday and Sunday afternoons.
Is it the full, do they have to sign up for a full weekend or do you have sections to it that they can come for a part?
It's better if they would come for the whole weekend.
The whole weekend?
Yeah, and then we can kind of move through, the one thing about this is it does take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
It's not an instant fix. And so to have a whole weekend to really go deeply into it, it's very experiential with lots of practices, a little bit of learning stuff, sharing, personal introspection. Yeah, so it's a well-rounded weekend.
George is into it. Okay, and where can people for your book, because you are on, if folks out there don't know of Insight Timer is an extraordinary meditation, yoga-esque app that is available for free, but you can basically access like the best of the best and it is, if you're even Insight Timer is amazing and you have something like 56,000 56 followers. You like thousands or views or whatever, which is a substantial number of folks are getting down with Lynn on there. But I strongly, so folks can find you on Insight Timer, but where else aside that they can look and find your books, your YouTubes, your videos, where do they go?
So all of the links are on my main website, which is LynnFraserStillpoint.com. And the books you can get through Amazon. The Friends with Your Mind, How to Stop Torturing Yourself with Your Thoughts is on a print or ebook. And then there's a book of practices that's an ebook. And that's the best place. YouTube is LynnFraserStillpoint on YouTube. And again, there's, I think, around 60,000 views of different practices there. I have a lot of them on there. And anyone who would like to, it's early here in Calgary, but it's at 6 a.m. here. But every single day for more than 2 years, I've had a free online daily practice.
Oh.
And you can come on. The details, the Zoom link is on my website.
Oh, there you go.
You can join me for free.
Oh, excellent. Very nice. Yes, it is early because you're out in the east.
Yeah, I'm in the
You're
east,
out in Halifax. So if but hey, they say those are the best hours to meditate is around that 3 a.m. is the time to do it, friends. All right. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for joining George and I here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. I could go on, but I shan't. I must return to the music, friends. All right. So catch up with Lynn at LynnFraserStillpoint.com. And from there, we are going to go to Hudson Mohawk.